Another thing also that is not included in the computation of GDP are those works that do not have a market value, such as housework you do for yourself. I think that is quite understandable already. Okay, and then of course, we now have an idea what is a market value. Let's go to another component of the definition of GDP, which is the final goods. So when we say final goods, so what comes into your mind when you hear the word final goods? So when we say final goods, they are intended for the end user. So kung may kag end users, dapat sila na jud ang pinaka last nga mo gamit. Okay? So if somebody else bought something kay para naa siya buhaton para gamiton sa lain nga tao, is that a final goods? Kadtong ning palit? Of course not. 'Di ba? Dili ako, say for example ako, ning palit kog something and then it undergoes a process para to come up with another product or another something nga gamiton ni someone. So therefore, I am not the final user but si someone. Si someone ang final user. Kasi siya man ang last nga ning gamit sa things nga akong gibay nga akong gihimong into something. So, unsa may tawag na ho? I am the unsa intermediate goods. So, ang something ay imong gipalit kay imong gihimo na put into something are what we call the intermediate goods. So, what is included only in GDP is the final good. Final good ra jud walay labot ang intermediate goods, because intermediate goods are used as components or ingredients in the production of other goods. Now, GDP only includes final goods because they already embody the value of the intermediate goods used in their production. So, going back to our example, nga ako na ako gipalit nga something and then I turn it into something and then have it by someone. So, ang ako, di na ko included ang transaction na ho between me and kadtong kong ipalitan is no longer included in the GDP because gi-carry out na siya. The value is already carried out to someone during the process of turning that something I bought into something para gamito ni someone. Hala, sige. Unda, kaya pa ang something kung someone. Anyway, so mao na siya ha. GDP only includes the final goods or those goods that are produced for or intended for the final users. Okay? Di na si ko kaklaro. Gutom na si Iko. Nara, nag-una man daay ko. GDP only includes final goods because they already embody the value of the intermediate goods used in their production. Okay, let's go to the goods and services. What is really goods and services? So, GDP includes tangible goods like DVDs, tanan nga, may kag tangible, nasa na tangible? So, tangible goods and intangible goods. So, when we say intangible, kanang dili makita. For example, concerts, kanang bakasyon kag usa ka hotel, no, the feeling of kanang satisfaction, which is in the field of business. Customer satisfaction should always be your primary concern. Nga naman, nga naman, tungod kay, if your customers are not satisfied with your product or services, they will never return. Okay? Okay. Okay. market value of all final goods or services produced within a country. So, kung may kag within a country, regardless, oh, for example, may kag Philippines. So, regardless of kinsay naa sa Philippines, within the boundary of the Philippines, ani transact or nanghimo og something and I value, na market value, it is included in JDP. So, naa dyan na siya, appeal na siya sa JDP. Bisan pa, og ang usa ka Chinese national Chinese na manang may nga punta nga aw nindot dai pud no ug daghang mga kanang mga foreigners bitaw nga magtukod og unsay tawag ana factory diri sa Pilipinas kay included na siya sa GDP. So, the more nga mo dako atong GDP, the more nga basta ma-discuss na nato later. Di to siguro una kay kapoy na ra ba ko sakit na hong likod. Okay. Okay, so mao na si siya tanan nga goods nga gi-produce within a country within the boundary of a particular country are included in the computation of GDP. Okay? Kaya pa? Okay, GDP includes currently produced products. Currently produced products or goods. Not goods produced in the past. Nga naman, currently gajud, ang current gajud, usually a particular country computes GDP or reports their GDP yearly or quarterly. Nga naman, ano di ba nimo i-appeal lang, for example, one particular, one particular factory in the Philippines nagproduce og money nga number of units of cars. Charot, anay kanang car production ng Pilipinas. It's just an example. So, last 2021, i-appeal nimo sa GDP sa 2022 dili na because that is already included in the GDP computation for 2021. So, kung imo na i-appeal ang production sa 2021 in 2022, maduble ang imong GDP and that is no longer a very reliable information. Daya na kami ang dako ang GDP nimo. Kani diri sa Pilipinas kay dato da pobre da ito because the computations are doubled. So mo nang di gyud nimo i-appeal ang products that are produced in the past because it's already been included during that particular year or quarter nga nag-report sila og or nag-compute sila og GDP. Okay? Dugay sa ni mahuman. Uy, ginaa ka. Okay. So, within a country, discuss naman nila to. Uy, within a country, meaning to say, kung nasa Pilipinas, regardless of kinsay naa sa Pilipinas, be it a Filipino, an alien, or a foreigner, kung basta ni-produce siya, goods and services, nga na-value, it is included in the GDP. So, within the country, inside the boundary, it is included in the GDP. Regardless of what is the nationality or race and a particular producers. Okay. And the last one is in a given period of time. So, klaro nakaayon ni, di ba yung ninyo sa una, usually, previously usually, a country reports their GDP or computes their GDP analysis for a particular year, yearly or quarterly. Diba naman mo say quarterly, di ba? Okay? Oh my God, it's brown out. Sorry, kids. Charan, brown out. Anyway, let's continue. Okay, what are the components of GDP? Okay, as a recap, GDP is total spending And there are four components of GDP: the consumption, investment, government purchases, and the net exports. Okay, these components add up to GDP with the following. Kasi tawagan ni mathematical equation or something. Basta kamahan eh. Y, which stands for the GDP, equals C, our consumption, plus I for investment, plus G for government purchases, and NX, or the net exports. Let us digest the components of GDP. For consumption, it refers to the total spending by household on goods and services. Okay, for note on the housing costs. So kung may kag consumption, tanan nga gipalit the total spending of household on goods and services. So tanan nga gipalit sa household on goods and services are considered as consumption, but with a particular note on the housing costs. I mean. For renters, consumption includes the rent payments. For renters, kung nag-abang ka, consumption means ang imong rent payments. For house owners, consumption includes, what does consumption includes? For house rent owners. Now, consumption includes the imputed rent value of the house, but not the uh, purchase price or the mortgage payment. So, what is imputed rental value? Master mo anak, kay accountancy mo. Ilabas ang inyong bangis. Okay? So, ang considered as consumption, which is included in the computation of GDP, are the imputed rental value of the house, not the purchase price nor the mortgage payments. Okay? Di na ko expound sa imputed rental value because master na gid mo na in accounting 1. Okay. Let's go to investment. What is investment? Right. How naman? Okay. Investment is or constitute the total spending on goods that will be used in the future to produce more goods. Ay sabi, am I recording? Basin wala. Oh, nag-record ay. Okay, joke. Okay. So investment is the total spending on goods that will be used in the future to produce more goods. Okay, do I need to elaborate? I don't think so. Bawal mo sa investment. Yung mo investment. Mo invest sa kuan, stocks and bonds. Charot. Mo invest we invested ani nga sabon kay after a year kutis Koreana ka na. Those are what we call investment. Okay. Another is it includes spending on capital equipments. Nastay na po mo ana. Capital equipments such as machines and tools or equipments. And then structures. Factories, office, buildings, houses. And then inventories. Goods produced but not yet sold. Hindi na ako ma-elaborate. Anak kay murag mas master pa muna ho kaysa ana. Okay? Note that investment does not mean the purchase of final assets like stocks and bonds. So, why appeal in GDP? Walay appeal ang purchase of financial assets like stocks and bonds, ha? It is included in the computation of GDP. Okay? Next is the government purchases. What are government purchases? Hindi naman ni mudagan. Okay. Okay, government purchases is all spending on the goods and services purchased by the government at the federal, state, and local levels. Tugaya, uy. Okay. G excludes transfer payments such as Social Security or unemployment insurance benefits. Transfer payments. Kabaw naman mo ani, di ba? You know this already. But why does GDP exclude transfer payments? Mm, that is your assignment number one. Why does GDP, competition in GDP, exclude the transfer payments, such as social or unemployment insurance benefits? That is your assignment number one. Okay, let's go to net exports. Kalugay ba? Okay, NX stands for export minus imports. So na exports, exports are represents foreign spending on economies, goods and services, while imports are the portions of consumption, investment, and government purchases that are spent on goods and services produced abroad. Adding up all the components of GDP gives, okay, mo na siya ang ano na, formula in computing GDP. Y equals C plus I plus G plus NX.